So just before 2008, the great financial crisis, all these guys were yakking about it and all this. Kenny and I just waited. When the whole thing came crashing down, I think I borrowed over $100 million to go and buy the best real estate around.
It starts with a headline, then a tweet, then the markets start to shake. Suddenly, you're hearing words like collapse, meltdown, and the biggest crash in history.
What in the world is happening on Wall Street?
Two-year note yields went from 190 to 166.
Now imagine someone saw it coming. Better yet, imagine they profited from it. And front and center in all of it? Robert Kiyosaki. Yep, rich dad, poor dad Kiyosaki. The man who spent decades preaching about financial literacy is now sounding the alarm like it's doomsday. Big claims, right? Kiyosaki's been predicting market crashes for years. And spoiler alert, not all those prophecies hit the mark. So in this video, we're going beyond the headlines. We're pulling receipts. Is Robert Kiyosaki a visionary warning us ahead of time? Or just the loudest voice in a long line of fear-based financial influencers?
The purpose of central banks like the Fed is to protect the banks.
You are welcome to Dollars in the Door. Here you will get insightful information about building a very successful lifestyle and balanced life all round. Remember to click the subscribe button and ring that bell for more updates before you proceed. Let's rewind the tape for a second. Robert Kiyosaki isn't just your average finance guy on the internet throwing around words like recession and debt. Nah, this is the man who literally built his empire on the idea that traditional education won't teach you how money really works. And now he's sounding the alarm again. But this time, he's not just predicting a dip or a minor correction. He's calling for the biggest financial earthquake in history. In January 2025, Kiyosaki jumped on X, formerly Twitter, and dropped a financial bombshell. He warned that February 2025 would bring the biggest stock market crash in history. Not maybe, not possibly. He said it like a man who's already seen the future. This isn't new territory for him. He's been riding this wave of crash warnings for years. Back in his book Rich Dad's Prophecy, Kiyosaki hinted that something big was coming. An economic landslide triggered by the retirement of baby boomers and a flawed financial system. To him, this isn't panic. It's a prophecy. But the urgency hit a new high in March 2025 when he posted again, this time with a louder warning.
The opening bell is going to ring in
This crash may be bigger than the 1929 Great Depression.
Up more than 6% right now. Google about 3%, but Dell, Intel, Research Motion, and Microsoft.
Let that sink in for a second. He's not just predicting the fall of Wall Street, he's talking about a global economic avalanche. Kiyosaki has called out Germany, Japan, even the United States. To him, these economic giants are standing on shaky legs, propped up by what he calls incompetent leaders and dangerous policies.
You son of a bitch, you loaded up our students full of debt, and now we wonder what's wrong with our students.
And that's not all. He claims that governments around the world are pushing their countries into traps, overspending, overprinting, and overpromising. In his eyes, they've set the stage for what he calls the giant crash. Now, here's where things get really intense. Kiyosaki isn't just predicting a crash, he's painting a picture of financial apocalypse. And if his words are anything to go by, 2025 could be the kind of year textbooks are written about. He's warning of massive job losses, with unemployment numbers potentially skyrocketing across the globe. In his view, millions of people could wake up to pink slips, dwindling bank balances, and no clear path forward. But it doesn't stop there. Kiyosaki sees stock prices plunging, not just in one country or market, but across the board. Wall Street, tech stocks, global indexes, nobody's safe. And remember how the housing market once felt like a solid investment? Well, according to him, that foundation is starting to crack. He anticipates a real estate crash, with property values diving as homeowners scramble to sell and buyers disappear into the shadows. Even the so-called safe havens? He's not convinced. He believes we could witness a collapse in the value of multiple asset classes, including those people we traditionally flee to in tough times. The things we once thought were untouchable, they may not be so safe after all. The trigger, he claims, is a perfect storm of economic failure, rising inflation, collapsing real estate, broken leadership, and job markets imploding. This will be bigger than the Great Depression of the 1930s, he warns. That's not fear-mongering, it's a battle cry. But, and this is the plot twist, Kiyosaki isn't running for the hills. He's not cashing out and hiding under a pile of gold bars. Well, not entirely. He's doing something a little unexpected.
here, this is one of the 5 golf courses I own. So even though
In the midst of the chaos, Kiyosaki is keeping a cool head. In fact, he sounds almost excited. It's the same vibe he had back in 2008. While the world was panicking, he said he was watching, waiting, calculating. In 2008, I waited, he recalls, letting the panic and dust settle, and then started to look for great real assets on sale at deep discounts. And to him, a crash isn't just a collapse, it's a clearance sale. And the smart investors are not paralyzed by fear. They're scouting the rubble for buried treasure. That's Kiyosaki's core playbook. He doesn't view downturns as doomsday. He views them as the greatest transfer of wealth opportunities the average person will ever see, if they know where to look. Bold on screen. So what does Kiyosaki suggest buying when the world feels like it's falling apart? He's got a short list, and he's not shy about it. Real estate. He's still a firm believer in land and property, but not just any property. He's on the hunt for undervalued assets, the kind that panic puts on the market for cheap. Buy low, rent high, that's the rhythm.
you get rich with that, that's why I've always said buy gold, silver, and Bitcoin. So today I'm doing my best to buy more Bitcoin and silver and gold.
Precious metals, gold and silver, have always been his financial comfort food. Tangible, historic, not subject to the whims of central banks. When paper money burns, he bets people will run back to metals, Bitcoin, and crypto. Now here's where it gets spicy. Kiyosaki has long championed Bitcoin, calling it the people's money. His famous line, "Get out of fake money and into crypto." To him, even a small investment in Bitcoin could outperform traditional assets during the crash. It's risky, sure, but in his eyes, so is staying in cash. While Robert Kiyosaki has built a brand around bold forecasts and dramatic headlines, a closer look at his actual track record starts to raise some eyebrows, and maybe even a few red flags. We're talking about a guy who's been sounding the alarm about market crashes for over a decade, and yet, the markets have mostly kept climbing. A US news analysis took a deep dive into Kiyosaki's predictions over the years, and let's just say, it's not the financial prophecy highlight reel he probably hoped it would be. April 2011, Kiyosaki tweets that an economic crash is already happening. But instead of a meltdown, the S&P 500 went up by 3.7% in the following year. Awkward. 2015. He claimed he'd been predicting a 2016 crash since 2002. Yet the market had other plans. The S&P 500 ended up gaining 9.5% that year. July 2017. Another warning, this time about a looming real estate crash. Reality check? The Real Estate Select Sector (SPDR) fund gained 4.9% in the next 12 months. April 2020. Amid COVID-19 panic, Kiyosaki declared the crash had just begun, right after the S&P 500 hit its lowest point of the year. 1 year later, the market had surged 53.4%. October 2020, he predicted an everything crash that would tank gold, silver, and Bitcoin. The result? Bitcoin soared 356.8%, and the S&P 500 jumped 40.5% over the next 12 months. And it didn't stop there. Similar gloomy predictions followed in 2021, 2022, and 2023, each one calling for chaos, each one shadowed by a market that just kept thriving. The trend is hard to ignore. Kiyosaki's market timing advice has been remarkably off point. It's like that one friend who always says, "This is the one," before every relationship, and then it ends in 2 weeks. Now let's talk about the claim that really catches attention. The idea that Kiyosaki became a billionaire during the 2008 crash. It's a compelling narrative. The world was falling apart, everyone else was panicking, and he was buying. Cue the inspirational music, right? But here's the kicker. There's no independent verification that he actually reached billionaire status because of those moves. None. Sure, he's talked about scooping up real assets at deep discounts during that time, and he does view crashes as prime buying opportunities. But there's no hard evidence to back up the idea that those 2008 investments turned him into a billionaire. The story is great for branding, but the receipts are still pending. There are 3 major issues that start to surface when you really break down Kiyosaki's approach: inconsistency and contradiction. Here's a curveball. In a July 2023 tweet, Kiyosaki admitted something surprising. "I do not play the stock or bond markets," he wrote. "As an entrepreneur, I like my hands-on control too much." Wait, what? That directly contradicts the person he's built as a savvy market crash investor. If he's not playing the markets, where exactly is he applying all this market crash wisdom? It's like a chef telling you they don't actually cook. They just talk about cooking. Persistent bearishness. Despite market performance, there's also the fact that Kiyosaki has stayed bearish even when the markets were clearly doing well. After he predicted in December 2023 that we were about to see the biggest crash in history, the S&P 500 responded by climbing 12.6%. That's not a small bounce. That's a full-on told you so from the market itself. While Kiyosaki is definitely a best-selling author and a household name in the world of financial self-help, there's no confirmed public record of his actual net worth.
This is God's money. Why did I say it's God's money? Because it was here when the earth was created. And it'll be here when we're all dead and gone. When you're saving those fake dollars, this will still be.
Yeah. Especially nothing that supports billionaire status. He's famous, no doubt, but when it comes to verifying just how rich he got from the 2008 crash, the internet comes up empty. So, where does that leave us? Don't let fear-based headlines dictate your financial moves. Instead, anchor yourself in what works. Diversification, long-term investing, sound financial planning. And yep, staying curious but skeptical, especially when the loudest voice in the room keeps getting the date wrong. Want to stay ahead without the hype? You can also subscribe to our newsletter on our website at dollarsinthedoor.com to get more updates from us and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, X, and Blue Sky at Dollars in the Door.